This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
It's been over a year since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu recalled Nigeria's ambassadors from across the world. During this time, the foreign policy of Nigeria has been decided from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Abuja. Our discussion this morning focuses on the effects of this vacuum on Nigeria's foreign policy, as well as its effect on Nigerians in the diaspora. We're speaking with Collins Nweke, the Chairman Emeritus of Nigerians in Diaspora, NIDO, in Europe. Mr. Nweke, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Our apologies. While we try to connect the audio with Mr. Nweke, who does join us on the line this morning. Mr. Nweke, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you on. What has highlighted this vacuum, or once again highlighted it really, is the recent visit of the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, who was in Abuja just a few days ago, right? And there are real questions on how effective Nigeria's foreign policy can possibly be if there's no ambassador in India, for instance, to follow up with whatever the discussion was between President Tinubu and Prime Minister Modi. So let's get your reactions first on how this gap is affecting our general outlook to the world.
Well, once again, thank you for having me. Obviously, Nigeria and Nigerians would rather that in every diplomatic mission in the world, that Nigeria has, a strong, not just a representative, but a strong and competent representative. Now, you need to look at it from two fronts. I mean, the absence of, Nigerian diplomats in, different missions of the world. In terms of an ambassador, you need to look at it from two fronts. Front number one is the consular services, and then, on the other hand, you have the diplomatic service. The reference you have made to the visit of the president to,
the Indian
President Modi. Prime Minister, Modi, is actually in relations with diplomatic, side of, the business. And of course, without the representation, there is limits to, what Nigeria could do, because having an ambassador means that the person carries the mandate of Mr. President. As a matter of fact, to the extent that when the person speaks, when the person attends an event, it is the president of Nigeria is speaking. So he or she has that authority. So without that authority, there is a limit to where you can enter, things that you can do, and matters that you can. So that is indeed a very big problem. And of course, in the eyes of the world, Nigeria doesn't look good that they are not represented by an ambassador. But for consular services of them, the foreign services that we have across the globe are very much involved with the task. They provide them, consular services as required. Nigerians will continue to have their visas renewed. If as a Nigerian traveling abroad, you run into difficulties, of course, the foreign service officers that are there will ensure that you get all the help that you need. But diplomatically, there are some issues around that.
So let's look at this a bit closer. Are there specifics that you can give us in terms of Nigeria's loss, the loss that we continue to suffer from the absence of the ambassadors to other countries? You've mentioned the inability of conversations to carry the sort of weight, the sort of presidential weight that an ambassador would provide. Can we localize this to the visit between Nigeria and India? Of course, bilateral conversations are going on in improving the ties between the two countries. How would an ambassador typically follow up this sort of visits to ensure that these bilateral ties are enforced profitably for Nigeria?
Absolutely. Well, it is the ultimate representation that is suffering here. The ultimate representation of the ambassador, that is what is suffering. However, even when an ambassador is present, it's the foreign service officers who remain present, and where, to my understanding, where there is no inventive ambassador on post, and there are very, very many. As a matter of fact, all the missions, across the globe, they appear not to be, ambassadors. So it is still the foreign service officers that do the ground work. Make all the necessary preparations. But of course, they do that following instructions from the ambassador. Now, where there is no ambassador, of course, clear instructions of what to do and how to carry on what we done will definitely not be there. One could argue that, from the headquarters in Abuja, that they receive, instructions on what to do, what to prepare, and the sort of negotiations that can be carried out. One could argue that they happen; those instructions come directly from Abuja, but obviously it is not the same because, so do all of that. Also have all counterparts as ambassadors that are in different countries for a number of bilateral negotiations. Without an ambassador, you cannot be represented by somebody of lower rank, or even when you do, when it's acceptable. I'm not sure you can be fully accepted as somebody on this level and taking our same seriousness. So yes, that is bilateral relations, sound negotiations suffer as a consequence of the absence of an ambassador.
Just as a final question, Mr. Nweke, and I know that the words might be a bit harsh, but there is a real question on whether the president's foreign engagements are somewhat wasted by the fact that there is no follow-up. So again, we've had Prime Minister Modi, but we've also had the president go to multiple countries since he first took office in May of last year. So would you say that his actions have been a waste without this follow-up of appointing ambassadors?
Yeah, it is very contradictory that, Nigeria doesn't have ambassadors, considering that, ambassadors on post. Now, considering that the present government had actually chalked out very robust foreign policy strategy, encapsulated in the 5D renewed diplomatic doctrine of the current administration. Of course, that is on paper. However, it's going to be driven, it's going to be implemented by the embassies headed by an ambassador. I continue to emphasize, beautiful, fine, brilliant, foreign service officers scattered across Nigerian missions across the world, who do all the preparatory work and the follow-up. The preparations prior to such visit as the one the president has carried out, but also the follow-up, the necessary follow-up afterwards will definitely be lacking, because some of those follow-ups are the inclusive results of the ambassador. So yes, it is contradictory, and one really wonders what is actually keeping, the appointment of ambassadors, and why in the first place were the sitting ambassadors actually withdrawn and, returned back to Abuja when, they were not ready with the appointment of replacements.
Mr. Nweke, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. Our guest, Collins Nweke, is Chairman Emeritus of Nigerians in Diaspora Europe, speaking to us on the continued absence of ambassadors at Nigerian missions and embassies across the world. Shortly after President Tinubu took office, he recalled the ambassadors who were present in those places and has yet to fill those positions. And as Mr. Nweke has noted, very contradictory to the 4 Ds of the Tinubu new foreign policy, the 4Ds being democracy, development, demography, and diaspora. Is yet to be seen how they will achieve this in full, but we'll continue to bring you updates and analysis as they unfold. In a few minutes here on Now Breakfast, Naira and Kobo comes your way.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.